Well, good morning, Raymond. I'm delighted that you've made your way in here, en route to somewhere completely other. And thank you very much indeed for coming in to talk about your new piece for RTÉ Concert Orchestra and Hugh Tinney, pianist, of course, of some renown.
Indeed.
And the piece you've written is called, I'm going to mispronounce it, I'm going to go for Anaphora, is that correct?
I think it's as good as anything else. I call it Anaphora.
You call it Anaphora.
I might start calling it Anaphora just to be perverse.
Do you say kilometre or kilometre?
I say kilometre.
Ah, well, there you go, you see.
On a good day.
That makes perfect sense. And tell us a bit about the piece. What does the title mean? It's Greek? The quick guess?
It's a term from rhetoric. It is originally Greek. It's a term that refers to a kind of a refrain almost that is repeated, but something different comes after it every time. And the example they always give is Winston Churchill. We will fight them on the beaches, we will fight them in the gutters, we will fight them in the pubs or whatever. I don't know the rest of it is. Each phrase begins with the same words, but then does something else.
And musically, do you do that?
I do, but in a very extended sense. I mean, the initial thing, I didn't start with the title. The initial thing was when I knew I was going to be writing this piece, and I sat down and I kind of jotted down some ideas. And I liked the very first idea I put down until I realized, God, that's how my last piece for piano and orchestra that I wrote 35 years ago begins. So I was just about to scrap it, and then I thought, well, maybe I won't scrap it. Maybe that would be an interesting thing to do.
So you're literally starting with the same...
Yeah, it's not exactly the same. It's a variation on it, but the principle is the same, and the notes, it's like a transposition.
Do you get the sense that you're... I mean, has this happened to you before?
Yeah, it has, and it's happened to me since.
Right.
I revisit stuff. This is probably... usually I do it deliberately.
Right.
In this case, it was a very strange sort of an accident that precisely that piece would be the one that came into my head at that moment.
Right.
A piece called Quaternion that I composed in 1988. So the new piece starts much the same as the old one does, and then goes in totally different directions.
Right.
But then there's an anaphora within the piece itself, because again, that opening material comes back and again goes in different sections. The piece is in two movements, a longish one, 13 minutes or so,
okay,
and a shorter one, 9 minutes. And you've just kind of recovered from the long 13-minute one. There's a pause, and the second one, oh, he's doing it again. It starts the same way as the first one, but again, it goes in a completely different direction.
I mean, you might be quite unique in composers in that you steal from yourself rather than from other people. I mean, it's what's that? Self-plagiarism?
I won't let on. I won't tell you any stories, but lots of composers do it.
Well, indeed they do, yes, and some quite famously as well.
Some do, yeah.
Yes, exactly. And you're working with Hugh Tinney.
Yes, indeed.
Pianist of renown.
Not for the first time.
Not for the first time. So we had Hugh playing your Nocturne.
Yes.
2019, if I'm correct in thinking that.
It was before lockdown.
Before
anyway,
lockdown, yeah, which is a set of solo piano works.
12 solo piano pieces, yeah.
And Nocturne referring to nighttime.
Nocturne is a diary of the night.
Right.
So it's 12 nocturnes, but not exactly in the Chopin sense.
And does your Hugh Tinney relationship go back before that, or is that your first?
No, it goes back to 1995.
Goodness.
Actually, I remember exactly because I was in Corfu and I got a message. I had just left the place, it was kind of artist retreat where I had been, and I was in a hotel in Corfu town, and I got a message that somebody called Hugh Tinney had rung up the art centre. So I managed to get a message to Hugh that he should ring me at a phone box, or I would ring him from a phone box in the middle of Corfu.
You've got to love those days.
Yeah, exactly. So I still have this vivid memory of me standing in this phone box in this lovely town called Kerkira and talking to this Hugh Tinney person whom I greatly admired, and he's saying that he was interested in working together with me, and so he was on my first chamber music CD, playing the after pieces that I wrote for myself to play, but he played them much better. And we worked again subsequently. He, as you say, he commissioned the Nocturne on about 2010, 2011.
And you don't, I mean, obviously you don't just write solo piano pieces, and this isn't a solo piano piece. How, you know, it's that thing that everybody asks composers, how do you deal with like piano orchestra thing? So, you know, you happen to have a piano and you happen to have an orchestra. How do they interact in the piece? What's their relationship? Is it good? Is it bad? Is it dodgy? What is it?
Well, I mean, God, you're asking me to describe the piece from beginning to end?
A general sketchy overview would do fine.
I don't know. I think the relationship between the piano and the orchestra keeps changing in this particular piece. I mean, the other one I mentioned, the Quaternion, 35 years earlier, will it still be around? That had 4 movements, and each one of those movements explored, in a very narrow way, a different relationship between piano and orchestra.
Right.
In the first movement, they alternate. In the second movement, the piano doesn't play at all. It's Celesta plays.
Nice.
The third is a piano solo, and the fourth, they are in unison from beginning to end. So that's 4 simple options. This one doesn't do anything as simple as that. Those kinds of options keep shifting.
But you described it to me as not being a kind of traditional piano concerto, is that piano's front and centre is a bit more embedded in that way? Is that a reasonable description?
It's not entirely rational. I just dislike... I've written 3 works now for piano and orchestra, and none of them is called piano concerto. Because I just don't like the idea of the heroic pianist soloist. But I have written pieces called oboe concerto and violin concerto, so
and you're denying Hugh a heroic role here. You know,
well, he has a heroic role. It is, but yeah, I suppose if I called it piano concerto, he could go around saying, "Yes, I am playing a piano concerto." It doesn't sound the same as "I'm playing Anaphora."
Like, what is that exactly?
Yeah, well,
and they may mispronounce it.
I play one of those every day.
Well, exactly. Quite. You know, I have one in my bathroom.
Exactly. Yes.
And what's the next thing you're going to be working on after this? Have you just come to a halt, or are you already onto your next thing?
No, since completing that, I wrote a piece for the Hard Rain Ensemble in the north of Ireland, and since that, I've been reworking a lot of material. I decided that a pair of songs I wrote in 2015 needed a third song added to make a more complete unity, so I've composed that. And then I am revising a lot of my earlier pieces because I have a publication deal with Universal in Vienna, and they will not accept my primitive computerizations. I have to, first of all, revise my finale input scores, send them to a so-called engraver in Germany, and she puts them within the framework of what the UE like. And so on. So that has actually taken up a remarkable amount of time.
That does. I know composers who switched to computer systems and they found themselves transcribing from one to the other and then sending it on to the publisher.
Well, with I shouldn't really be talking about that. With the particular one I use, when it brings out a new version, and I find my old versions suddenly need to be reworked because they're all distorted.
I know, but that traditional thing about the publisher takes whatever it was you wrote, transforms your scribbles, and those days are gone now.
No.
So, you know, you can't just provide a scribble and say, you know, make it thus.
No, indeed you can't.
It's
good old days.
The good old days have gone, exactly. Well, the old days of phone boxes and publishers who used to take your scribbles.
Yeah, I mean, God, I mean, you're young enough to be my grandson, more or less. I can tell you some memories I have.
I use amazing anti-aging creams, you know.
That's do you? Oh, well, yeah. God, you must give me the recipe.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much, Deirdre. It's a real pleasure to be chatting to you, and really look forward to hearing it. So it is on the first evening. You're the opening, you might even be the opening orchestral moment of New Music Dublin. So you're on the Thursday evening with the RTÉ Concert Orchestra and Hugh Tinney. Thank you very much indeed, Raymond.
Thank you.